Today's episode is sponsored by iBase, simplifying how complex, discrete products are built and maintained with modern manufacturing expertise and technology. Visit them at ibase.com.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm David Muller, Senior Editor at SME Media and your host today. We're joined by Naveen Punian, President and CEO of iBase. iBase, to put it simply, is a software company that simplifies how complex products are built and maintained. Its Illumina iSeries software solutions bring together real-time data for a 360-degree view of production, quality, and overall operations. iBase enables model-based enterprise smart manufacturing. Some of the world's leading complex discrete manufacturers rely on iBase's intelligence and expertise to plan, execute, and continuously improve their operations in an ever-unpredictable world. Naveen, as mentioned, is President and CEO, and he's passionate about driving iBase's overall vision, as well as simplifying complex operations for customers while driving a more sustainable future. Under his leadership, the company has expanded its rapidly growing digital manufacturing solutions business across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Thanks for joining us today, Naveen. We're glad to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you. Great introduction. It sounds like I'm doing a lot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, on that note, maybe you could start by just giving us a little bit more background on yourself and kind of how you came to be part of a founder-led business like iBase.
Sure. Happy to talk about that. Thank you again for having me on. The company has a rich tradition here, started by my father in 1986 and really cut his teeth on the C-17 project for McDonnell Douglas. And that was really where we got our start. Had a vision, basically built a team together, formed the first product, and it's been around ever since. Company was run by Ladira, my mother, and then I came in straight out of college and have been working with the company now for 19 years and in the CEO position for 4 years. But really, the vision of the company has never changed. It's been the same. It's really, again, how do we build products and capabilities and expertise? We do a lot of consulting with our customers on how to manufacture better or provide maintenance, repair, and overhaul operations and do it in a more simplified way.
Excellent. And, we've been hearing a lot more about model-based enterprise, but I'm not sure that everybody's totally familiar with what that means. Would you mind giving us a little bit of an overview of model-based enterprise and what that means?
Sure. In a nutshell, it's really, how do you take a 3D model and use that to serve as the be-all, end-all source of truth for all activities in a product lifecycle. It's a very hard thing to do, especially if you're in aerospace and defense like we are, to actually have all that information, all that data existing within a model. Typically, you only see parts of capabilities in this type of model, but really, it requires systems to be interoperable and really share data. And typically what you've seen is a lot of design engineering tools that have come out and building the model, right? You need to have the 3D model, but the model's only as good as the data underneath. And so what you're seeing is many companies being able to build the initial, I would say, phase one designs of these models, but now how do you integrate the rest of the supply chain, the rest of the value chain, including manufacturing, including MRO operators and providers that are maintaining products or evolving products, and make sure you're bringing all that data back into the model. So a lot of work that needs to be done. You have different systems trying to talk to each other. So how do you really make the data applicable and digestible across all these systems? and really bring everyone together on the same page.
And I mean, even a basic level, I mean, at the end of the day, once you've wrangled all that data and you've kind of, broken down these otherwise silos that can sometimes exist at a manufacturer. I mean, what your users look at pretty much a simplified dashboard. I mean, at least with, I don't know, maybe describe this a little bit better yourself, but with the different circles that are tracking different aspects of the manufacturing operation.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's hard to get an aggregated view of everything that's going on at any given point in time, right? And so being able to capture data at each work cell, work center, supply chain, that's super important to really understand what's happening. And I think what's really important here is, and what we see is, most people just don't know how to tackle this. And they might have some part of their operations that are digital, some that are not digital. And the ones that are digital, that they're able to report on it. Some of the ones that aren't, they're going and writing on a whiteboard, what's happening. But then if a change happens, or data gets modified, or a process change happens, how do you reflect that in real time? And so part of the value here of the model-based enterprise, and you sometimes hear some of these things and it's a bit synonymous, has little different nuances to the meanings. But when you think of digital thread, right, that's another initiative that we hear a lot about, but that's really connecting the systems and the data. And then really model-based enterprises, how do you reflect that in the model? And everyone's working off that same model, right? And so that, I think, has been the difficult thing to tackle, but why I like to say we exist, and really, again, fulfilling my father's vision of how do we make it easier, better, more simple, is making that data accessible. Not only accessible, but also our job is to make sure we present it in an organized, structured way so it makes sense to all those that are consuming it.
Great. And, I'm guessing that there are some strategic advantages of model-based enterprise for aerospace and defense manufacturers in particular. Is that something you could talk a little bit more about?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the key strategic advantages, and it's on the top of everybody's mind, is just quality assurance, right? But how do you really ensure quality, right? You have to, one, define your process, execute to that process, and really understand and put guardrails around how people are performing the work, right? So you need to be able to have process control. And if there's a change that happens, you need to be able to reflect that change, to all the affected individuals. So by making sure that people are just really working off the right data and they really understand it, how do I, screw this bolt in? What tolerance levels do I need to, schedule or program the torque wrench to actually screw this bolt in? I mean, having all that data readily and available allows me to perform my work the best. And most importantly, you think about the cost of rework. So if I did not do it the right way, I might have to scrap and redo that whole thing. Or if I had someone in my supply chain, I made a design change and they needed to produce a different part, but I initially told them to build it to a different spec, but I don't notify them quickly enough. They start manufacturing all these parts that they may ship that I can't use, right? So just very inefficient. So, the quality assurance is everything. And MBE promotes that type of environment. And just talking about, quality, it's also the speed and agility. Again, with change comes a lot of just trying to figure out, what do I need to do? What work needs to be performed? What even changed, right? But by having a model-based enterprise and really integrating the systems and working off the same data, and really being able to reflect it into the model, 80 to 90% of engineering changes become automated, right? So I don't have to go figure out what's going on. It automatically is reflected in my model, in the work that I need to do. So all I have to really do is perform my work, right? So manufacturers can thereby reduce delays. They can increase their production and velocity of the work that they're doing. And you have a closed loop engineering change management capability, because now you have all these systems working with each other. So if I make a change in one, I know how it's going to affect others. And, it goes without saying, but operational efficiency, right? So if I'm going to consume materials and I'm going to change processes, I got to streamline all that. So most of our customers look for, they say hyper automation. Well, if I can hyper automate, I'm able to deliver a superior product, faster and more cost effectively. So again, it goes back to the single source of truth and everyone being able to work off the same page. And additionally, what we're seeing in our space is, again, becomes a very a strong push by the government, but the DoD is requiring customers to actually produce these digital records, right? And they're actually saying, hey, I'm gonna if I have a program, I'm gonna base you winning that program, like 20% of that program has to be on how much model-based capabilities you can deliver on, right? How are you managing compliance and traceability and delivering that digital twin or cyber asset? And that's all, again, intertwined. So you have to be able to put these things together. The FAA is probably going to go down the same route because, again, it's about how do we become more efficient, produce a higher quality product, and not have episodes like, what happened with Boeing or, Spirit. We can't have these things happen, right?
I mean, it really kind of goes to not only running an efficient operation, but then correct me if I'm wrong, but like what you're alluding to is also you can show evidence not only to your clients, you can show evidence to regulators, you can show evidence to whoever that look how tight the ship is that we're running here.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And, customers, whether you're trying to bid on work, for an OEM, because we deal with a lot of tier suppliers, or, your customer, they do want to see how you're performing this work, and they're going to vet you versus someone else, right? If you manufacture a certain way versus someone else, and I can show you that I have more efficiency, I'm going to actually have reduced cycle times, I can actually deliver you a product or a component at a reduced rate. You're going to pay less. Why wouldn't you go with me, right? So it's actually now even becoming a competitive differentiator. Granted, it's going to be a mandate and it's moving down that path, but really it's a competitive differentiator. And if you don't do this today, and if you don't start an initiative, right, what's going to happen, right? You're going to lose business, you're going to lose contracts, you're not going to be able to maintain the competitive edge. And cost is a big part of that, and on-time delivery, of course, in our world.
Now, within different organizations or businesses that are running model-based enterprise, who owns the enterprise life cycle? Where in the organization does the responsibility lie?
Yeah, this is actually a really, really good question, because it's something that we sort of battle a lot, right? So who kind of rules the roost in our world? Typically ERP, right? CFOs need to understand where their costs and resourcing allocations are, and they want predictability on that. And then most companies, they really start off as design companies, right? You got to build an engine and bring it to market. You got to build a jet and bring it to market. A lot of skunk works type projects and innovation labs to try and bring these products to market. So what you find is a lot of these companies are really great at design, and they want to run an efficient business. They put in ERP. But, what you also start to see is, especially as it starts to move into manufacturing, everyone wants to have a touch on it and say that they do it. But there's often a gap, right? And most people don't really understand manufacturing as well as they should. And so what you find, so ERP and PLM or design, right? They're all trying to grab data and say they're the single source of truth, and everything lives and dies in our system. But the real truth is nobody owns one piece or part of data, right? It's all about how do we share data So, with us, and we produce MES and MRO, solutions, we're capturing data and this last mile data that you wouldn't see in ERP or in PLM, right? But does it mean you completely ignore design data or PLM data, or do you completely ignore ERP data? Does that mean we should be the full system of record? No, it means we're all sharing. And again, it goes back to model-based enterprise. All the data that we're all contributing and putting in has its place in that data architecture and in the model. And so we're all putting that data in. So no one person owns it. We're all part of the life cycle, right? Design is part of a life cycle. Execution and build is part of the life cycle. Your supply chain and all the components and parts that they're building, that's part of the life cycle. And then maintenance of the solution is part of the life cycle. And really what keeps it all going is the business, right? So there's business intelligence capabilities that, our data might feed up into that actually makes that business intelligence data much more robust, so executives can make better decisions. So again, there's no one place. I think people need to stop thinking about, does it live here, does it live there? I think you do need to assign, where do you want to get certain data sets from? But ultimately, if you start to think of a model-based enterprise, you really want it to all flow into the model, and then you'll have a big picture thing, big picture capability at your fingertips, and really it's an amalgamation of everyone's contributions to that data set and that model. So really, it's a shared existence between everyone in the company.
All right. So another question I'm wondering is, how does a model-based enterprise approach affect how the shop floor manages their builds, and what role does it play in driving quality on the shop floor?
Yeah, David, that's a very good question. So, what we see is, in any sort of build process, it involves many different people, right? And first, you got to bring them into a digital environment that allows the enterprise to be more connected and in sync, right? And by connecting all these different players and connecting the data, there's going to be less room for error, right? Because data is real time. People are working off the right information. They're not performing work that's off the wrong specification. It's the right specifications because it is real time. And because of the complexity of building anything like a jet engine or a satellite, it's really easy to build to the wrong specification or the wrong design, or perform work in the wrong order, because designs and processes are constantly changing. So this all has to be automated, and then the process then needs to be controlled. And so moving to a model-based enterprise or a model-based environment, right, you have that information at your fingertips, so you get the right information at the right time, so you perform the right work ultimately. And this is super important, especially as you start to think of the supply chain, right? Though they're not in your four walls, they're super important as part of building a quality product and having quality outcomes, because really you're only as strong as your weakest supplier, right? If you depend on those suppliers to be producing those parts, you, to some degree, need to influence and move them and make sure that they're producing quality products. So having close collaboration with them, and again, looking at model-based enterprise, being able to deliver that model with all the data and potential changed data so they know exactly what they need to do is super important to getting a quality product out. And if you have a higher quality product, you're going to have less rework, right? You're going to have less warranty work, which slows you down, right? Because you have to always fix those to get the product out the door. But if you remove those, then really you're focused on scaling and growing and expanding, which is really where companies want to move. And I think what's super important is MBE solves a lot of problems that occur just because of that dynamic work environment, right? Because of that rapid pace of change that's happening, you need to be able to account for that. But I think more importantly, you're able to increase the pace of innovation, so a more rapid pace of innovation, able to rapidly deliver those products, right? Again, with high quality, and you have the ability to be agile and to change and offer new products with enhanced capabilities. And therefore, automating change can do wonders for the business and the bottom line. So you're reducing operational costs. You're able to increase your pace of and rate of production, right, which leads to greater revenue and profitability. But at the end of the day, you can't increase your pace without ensuring that the quality follows along, right? Because, building a Ferrari that doesn't turn on is just not fun, right? So you need to make sure that you do that effectively. And you start to look at model-based enterprise and the vision and what it represents as a way to get there to drive better quality outcomes.
Yeah, and you mentioned where, or at least from my vantage point, there's really kind of a different in terms of companies being digitized or not digitized, or being at different points along the digital how digitized they are, how digitized their operations are. I mean, it doesn't seem to really matter as much on what sector or what size the companies are. There's a lot of customers that I'd imagine are at different points in that journey. Where is iBase team focused to kind of help make the model-based enterprise a reality for customers? And having said all that,
yeah, very good. So I think as I said, the market, that it's not like they have not gone digital. It's just like you say, there is a lot of different pieces and parts that customers need to implement. So think of it as more of a digital ecosystem of capabilities that you need to deploy. Again, most of it being an ERP and PLM and design tools and CAD simulation type tools. And we're very focused here on manufacturing execution and maintenance, repair, and overhaul execution capabilities. So when you think, design is happening kind of in a different way than manufacturing, right? Manufacturing is happening on the shop floor, or, you're doing MRO on the depot floor. And typically that's been a black box, right? So you throw requirements and specs in, and then you change those requirements and specs, and then you hope to get a product out on the other side that matches the right revision of the product that you have. So really, we're shining a light on all the work in process activity of anything that's manufactured or maintained. And most importantly, we've been spending a lot of time taking all that rich data that we have in our platform and being able to deliver process, product, employee, and supply chain data into that model, right? So for model-based enterprise, we're contributing those pieces. And again, you need to digitize all those aspects and capabilities, because if you don't, how are you going to get that data into the right format and to the right people? And so because we're capturing all this data, who worked on it, when did they work on it, what tools did they use, what certifications did they have? We have all that deep traceability and context of what happened, right? So if there is a defect, when that defect, you're able to look and see why was that defect there, what could have been the reason, which supplier might have performed that defect. You're able to get that granular information that you can then use to troubleshoot, root cause, and solve it. And when you're a dynamic environment, so if you're changing designs or you're trying to continuously improve, right? I don't want to, it takes me $50 million to build this product, but how do I move that to 30 million? Things are going to have to change, whether it's the design, whether it's how I manufacture, how do I reduce waste out of the process? That is where we come in and we help customers be able to implement our solution, our software, but really it's a platform that enables you to manage your process, execute to that process, and capture all the information that's there. And I think what's also important is that data flowing into the model is important too, right? So again, how can I actually look at a model and really understand where you're at in a process, right? In a product life cycle? How do I, drill down and just highlight visually to see where all my defects are? How do I know how much of the work has been completed or not completed just by looking at the model, right? It could be shaded red. If there's an issue, it could be shaded green, but you get this visual understanding of how I'm actually operating. And most importantly, you can take that and run it to your plan versus actual, so you can actually see, oh yeah, I'm on task or I'm not on task, or what needs to change to get on task. But more importantly, the goal is to remove all the challenges in that process and constraints that are preventing you from hitting your targets, right? So if you've ever read The Goal by Ellie Goldratt, right? Theory of constraints, right? You gotta make sure that you have optimal flow in your process and your product life cycle. So understanding where the slower flow points are and solving for those is instrumental in delivering faster and more efficiently. Also, I think, obviously I come from the MES space and MRO space, but, I think the financial ROI here is absolutely enormous by solving these challenges. So if you think about manufacturing or MRO, most product costs are incurred through the build and maintenance process, right? So if you look at an OEM, 80% of the costs are driven on the shop floor or the depot floor strictly because you're managing people, their processes, and the raw goods, right? These are all costs of goods sold. So making that more efficient can lead to tens, hundreds, if not billions of dollars in opportunity. We've worked with customers and we've been able to return 2 to 3% to their bottom line. So if you're a $1 billion company and you achieve 3%, that's $30 million a year that we're returning by just making you more efficient, preventing warranty work, preventing rework, making your suppliers more efficient, and increasing cycle times. So, whether you have 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, just get them aligned, operate in the same ecosystem and off the same data, and that's going to supercharge your ability to deliver products more cost effectively. And, I'll leave it on this note. AI is another revolution like big data was, right? We definitely saw ourselves as a big data type company because of the sheer amount of data that we gather as part of a product life cycle in manufacturing and MRO. So the AI foundation is really in the data and the contextual data that you can produce, right? So you can feed our data into any GPT and you'll have a world of information that you didn't know about. So I think if you want to build a proper AI strategy, data is the key and is the king of being able to execute on that. So making sure that you implement solutions like ours and then integrate our solutions to your other systems is going to put you miles ahead of the competition.
Great. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us and chat a little bit more about all this. Very interesting and engaging. If listeners want to learn more about iBaseT, where should they go?
Sure. You can go to iBaseT.com. We have a wealth of information on, how you can take advantage of this, learning about model-based enterprise, learning about digital thread, really learning about best practices of how to manufacture or maintain products, and learn about the solutions. And we also have a blog, right? So we're all about presenting industry data and best practices and, really partnering with our customers to find what's coming down the pipe and what's the areas of innovation that we want to focus on. Happy to have everyone in the community join, follow. And, we have a YouTube as well. But really, if you just search iBaseT, you'll find us. And, happy to engage and educate everyone on how we make the world a better place by working together.
Excellent. And in the meantime, to stay up to date about what's happening in manufacturing today and hear more podcasts, visit us at advancedmanufacturing.org.